I'm watching See the BS. Yesterday was episode 202, and there's something that the television entrepreneurs or staff puts on there to distinguish the phi and cosify of foreign intelligence and something called a master class. Now, is this gentleman, I don't know how this works. Stuff that they have not spoken of except in some cryptic way. I mean, I look at, for things that they've thrown out in the field. They've thrown out some reference to Solomon. They haven't thrown out the Farouk thing, but that's been something in a quiet house. My mom used to say as one of those Irish idioms that make no sense to the children, but it sticks in the graw, and you're like, now where? That Mother Fletcher, is that relevant? So I'm like, So I'm like, and this they keep referencing this gentleman as master class. Now I'm like, now is he the King George reference? For we have a George Washington here with green linen, some national security, some history here, and there's a family tree. Are we all descendants of this King George? I've heard King David referenced elsewhere, but I don't have a facial, like I can't, I've heard it in the field. I've never seen it. I don't know what it means. The Episcopalians mentioned it the other day, but they also mentioned Joshua. So I'm like, I'm sticking with household word of King Farouk. Not quite sure why that's relevant. See a lot of possible descendants, but never sure who's working for whom or with whom. And then there's this football reference with there's a star. He's one off. He's one off from Grandpa Star, I think. But they're putting up some story with an M in front of it as an ISS, IPPI. And I'm like, now I'm in high, HI. And this is high. Is this their high five? I'm just at George V's children. I'm in backlot. I'm in my fourth season or my fourth whatever decade, and I'm listening to the field coaches. And I don't know today. McMaster's doesn't have on a headset, so I'm like, I'll leave it off for today. However, in the couch potatoes perspective of I don't watch sports, I don't really see their purpose. Although Mayor Adams put out yesterday on the news about baseball, something different, sidestep, this reality of the master's class having a conversation. He said that baseball is incredibly important because of the revenue and the tax dollars and the economy that it brings to the city for the Bronx. I'm like, right. Okay, theoretically, I am not a sports manager. I'm not a sports marketer. In fact, I have no idea what their purpose outside of, I thought it was like a pastime sport. I didn't realize there's symbology growing dangerously inside pastime sports for Colosseum games and the Parthenon and perhaps Heliopolis, if we're speaking upon Cerberus, a three-headed dog, and then there's a one-headed bird that King George's children are supposed to fly on the backs of, and then there's a two-headed bird elsewhere. And I'm like, um, they blacksmithed me with two, they're not even Nephilim. They're under 6 foot. They look like dwarves to an elf. If we're talking Tolkien's token or totem for references. So this way, as a Thane, one stays respectful with family trees and with forests and forestation going on. Of I'm really in a Mississippi, M-Iss-Iss-Ippi. I'm concerned at a lot of levels. Um, but not having a master class at home to speak to that I'm aware of, since it's been radio silence between me and the generation before, it's like limited vocabulary, high potency, it would appear. Um, so they're talking about Grandpa Star, Brett Favre, and then I thought he was Viking, but that seems to be one off as well, because now he's wearing a big G. So does that make him a G-man? Like G under? Again, I'm lost in the sea of 100 possibilities, and there being no man of high standard and intelligence anywhere in my field of opportunity to even gopher with or travel and journey with and journeysman, this gets really, really confusing. So I'm looking at the teleboard and I see Masterclass is speaking about an FI at outside foreign born state and some intelligence that's going on. He's marking the board up like a sports announcer for realm work, it would appear, in the real world. And he's trying to explain, like a sports announcer would after a game, what's going on. And I'm really trying to follow along in seeing the genius or the genesis or the exodus or the whatever or whatever the grand master plan. But I really feel at 44, God has ignored me. Country has ignored me. And family has ignored me. And I am trying to find my place amongst the three. And I'm looking to some form of intelligence that comes in, but it's not, it's cryptic. It's like, ay. So there's a Brett Favre mention. I thought they said he was Vikings. Apparently he's got some G-Man context. I don't know what that really means. I have 3 teams in New York. Don't know what that means. Don't even know who their players are. Don't know why they're relevant. I have another person who was a New England Patriot and then move one off to a Buccaneers. I'd say bucking the system. That's how I remember it in the big wide world of why are these facts important. Maybe they'll come in handy. So he's in Buccaneer, which looks like swashbucklers, for whatever that means. And then I'm like, but he's birthday, anniversary, bon anniversaire. So for me, that's incredible. If I have to find a reason in like a Caleb Scott songbird type of a way, at Alouette, Lark, whatever. Um, because I've got high priority ISS. I got hit in the head with some kind of really dangerous technology where there's no chain of command. I don't have a McMaster's on speed dial to call. I don't know how one even gets to that level of importance. I mean, he says they said that they mention him as a general. That seems like a very important title in the world. I have no idea how, between being left as a couch potato in the middle of some three-headed dog fight between kings I can't even figure, and then extra players that are out of bounds and off field because there's some business office and some perhaps treaties that I mean, like how they're arriving. I, where is the high at keeping hive? There's a hive and a five, perhaps. I'm having, how do you safely hive with children? I mean, I call it nesting, but hiving makes more sense at home intelligence. If the five of foreign intelligence is just moving kingsmen that don't even look relevant into and out of your, like, the ability to even have a conversation with you, and you're like, I mean, where did God, country, and family go? I mean, how does one even survive this when they're thrown into this situation? They've got to try to figure out a way. I mean, they put us in a series of rooms. They said that if we stayed in those rooms, and I mean, like, this is old money's philosophy. We stay in the rooms, we learn basic tools and skills, reading, writing, and even writing was something that was frowned upon, according to Mark King, that came to whatever, but then they took him out of the school and they taught it anyway. Um, so that gets confusing. Um, all under this flag system of the red, white, and blue with the stars, of the L in Roman numeral stars. Um, so I'm like, ay, ay, ay. How to, and then the thing that I was built and delivered for, which was being a really good wife and being a really great mother, I wasn't even able to do that. So now, how do I raise, and it is just, it is like this deteriorating system. And yet somebody else figured out some alternate route, and they seem to be doing really well at breaking things worse in like really rapid exponential format, while the rest, like, like, it just becomes some entrapment and some kind of like quantum entanglement in, like, there is no way out of this. How do I ask for a hand up and a hand out when the quicksand is like up to my neck? So, in reality, the reality that I'm in, because I'm not in a sports household, Lewis does not watch sports, does not wear jerseys. I think he's been to like a tennis match he was invited to once, by one of the Italian friends that he has, the pigeon fish person. Um, so I'm not really sure, but like these household names of sports characters, no. Might the rest of the Gunders are, like Judy was an avid Yankee fan. Derek Jeter, I think. But I was too busy trying to avoid being hunted and harmed and put into further danger with my children, that sports really wasn't my thing. And now in like my 40s, I'm looking for signs of relevance cosmically with some possible cosmetic, like, are they still King George's ancestors or descendants? Is that still like, I mean, I gotta, if there's flags on the field and there's very real, like, there's a lot more of the other king's children inside of New York. I'm really having a hard time here, like, figuring out how do I even gain access to enough money to move to something, and where would I even go? Where are King George's children or ancestors at this point? So this is, I'm trying to decide if I should put Favre first or for bean encounters, or if I should put Masters first, because Favre is technically Hive for whatever they're mentioning about that. Because I'm at a loss in the same, I mean, like, he's, I think, 9 years on, if we count by abacus, he's 9 years within the range of my star, since constellations being what they are, and not wanting to incite and riot crazy. I have to hold on a second. Interestingly enough, before this welfare scandal that they're mentioning between the prior Viking, but now a G-man or G symbol, it has a commercial for Floor and Decor.
We've got you covered. Discover Floor and Decor today.
We have exclusive new information on the largest welfare scandal in Mississippi history. CBS News has obtained never-before-seen evidence linking that effort to retired NFL superstar Brett Favre's pet projects. Omar Villafranca has the story.
This is a game changer.
A new concussion drug backed by NFL legend Brett Favre needed financing, so he turned to his home state of Mississippi, the poorest in the nation. The pitch was made in 2019 at Favre's home to the former head of the state's human services and Nancy New, the founder of a nonprofit that distributed welfare funds in the state. In a document obtained exclusively by CBS News, the drug company Prevacus asked for nearly $2 million from the Division of Human Services in the state of Mississippi. They struck this agreement. In exchange for funding, the drug would be made and tested in Mississippi. Former federal prosecutor Brad Pygut investigated the transactions for the state.
Both federal and Mississippi law required 100% of that money to go only to the alleviation of poverty within Mississippi.
Court documents show Prevacus was sent $1.5 million, with Favre's business associate later asking for the rest.
Okay, in my case, this is 1.5 for me. Instead of this, they asked for 784, whatever that means, because I've got a 78 and then there's a 4 and one off from whatever in large Masonic signaling. And then all of a sudden there's 1.5. Well, Teofrio 1975 is a 5.15.15. That's on the certificate for me signaling back. He's under 6 foot and I'm in trouble in the field. Where is brother or grandpa Star? And they've got a little bit like keener eye on the situation from their like perch somewhere in like the hierarchy of, they sit amongst the gods that run like on some ancestry or ancestral fuel of there's a book binding somewhere. I'm just having trouble when Joshua's the one that shows up in like before I was 10 or like right around 10. And then now in my 40s, I've got Jesus showing up. I'm just saying, as an internal accounting issue, I don't know what they're really doing, but it doesn't feel right in outside of a 3 and a 4 talking to 2 7s one-on-one. Between Hive and 5, I don't know why I'm stuck and blacksmithed this way. They also have on something about some Herschel who paid for some abortion, and he paid $700 and they have the check. So now, again, is that just confirmation in big area signaling of what they're up to? That they're now like admitting it without admitting it, that they know that there was someone sent in that shouldn't be anywhere near me? I'm just curious because the signs and the signaling at like cosmic, like confirmation and reading between the lines. I mean, Angela Lansbury and Mother Fletcher, the way that it is.
We would love 784K, he wrote with a smiley face emoji in a text message obtained by CBS News. New responded, we can send 400K today, adding, I will need to let Brett know that we will need to pull this from what we were hoping to help with on other activities. She has since pleaded guilty for helping funnel millions in welfare money for a volleyball center at Favre's alma mater. Eric?
Volleyball. So they're using what as volley? I'm just curious because there's a man who loves me somewhere that knows that there's one wiffle ball that I hold near and dear to my heart while I'm trying to traverse this in good faith.
Eric Hirschman, Brett Favre's attorney, insists his client didn't know the grants were coming from welfare funds and that Favre didn't personally receive any of the money paid to Prevacus. We have documents that show Mr. Favre and his business partner asking roughly $2 million from the state for Prevacus. Why were they asking the state for money?
Well, to be clear, I think Brett's job was to make the introductions, but keeping this in mind, this is the Mississippi Department of Human Services. This is a thing, if the drug is successful, will obviously benefit people throughout the country. So they were discussing a state grant. No one ever said that the Mississippi grant funds were coming from a federal entity that limited the welfare funds.
Well, you're almost making him sound like a patsy, like he was set up.
Nobody's a patsy, except no one told him. You want the outside quarterback to look at and say, wait a minute, let me challenge the entire state as to what they do with their own funds?
This is not philanthropy. It's not a passive investor. He invited the director of the Mississippi Department of Human Services into his house to receive the sales pitch.
Favre has not been charged with any crime. The state of Mississippi is suing to get back the $2.1 million from the drug company and its affiliates. Last month, the company announced they had completed the first round of clinical trials in Australia. Omar Villafranca, CBS News, Dallas.
Up next, what the story?
That was
Stories that we talking about today, but first,
that was this morning, which I think is the E203 for CBS mornings. I'm going to pause this. I'm going to pull up the Herschel incident, which just marries the concept of paid for abortion $700 that ties into whatever the numbers are going in an esoteric way to this conversation on headliners that I'm like, and then I'm going to go to master class.